everyone, and welcome to another video. So I am trying to walk every day, so I'm walking as I do this video, but I really wanted to do a video. I've been wanting to do this video for a while. Is the dialogue in Revenge of the Sith actually bad? And extending beyond that, is the dialogue in the prequels very bad? We're gonna answer that question today. Let's get into this.
I've been looking forward to this.
So, first of all, if you hear any wind or any other noises, I'm sorry. Again, I'm having to do two things at once. So one of the main criticisms, for those of you who may not know, especially if you haven't really seen Star Wars, the Star Wars prequels have been widely criticized for having clunky dialogue. And a lot of people who were fans of the originals came in and did not like the prequels and how George Lucas did them. And they have a lot of different issues. There's been a lot of criticisms over the years. And I hear a lot of people using the argument that even George Lucas admits that dialogue's not his first thing. Like, that's not his, when he makes movies, he doesn't exactly focus heavily on the dialogue. He's very innovative, and so his thing has always been pushing film technology forward. That's why he did all the blue screen and green screen, which did get a lot of criticisms too, because it looks, a lot of people did feel like it looked unrealistic.
What?
Compared to practical effects where you like have an actual person in a costume or whatever. But without that, we would not have that commonplace ability to do it even now. And it set the groundstone for the technology that's used you know, in commonplace in the film industry and even YouTube and online and stuff. Like, I could go on TikTok and do a green screen filter right now if I wanted to. I could put this video in Canva and put Star Wars behind me. But so he focuses on technology is my point. Now, with that in mind, I grew up with the prequels, and in fact, I grew up with Star Wars: The Phantom Menace, Episode 1, and that was the only Star Wars movie I knew for a long time. It just never came up. And so I didn't know, so I ended up discovering Episode 2 and Episode 3, and I got left on a cliffhanger. I did not know that 4, 5, and 6 existed. So for the longest time, I was like, well, he's Darth Vader, and the galaxy is screwed. And that's how I thought it ended, until I discovered 4, 5, and 6, and I think my mom and I like binge watched them, and I watched the remastered version of Episode 6, and it was the version where they have Hayden Christensen as a Force Ghost at the end. I cried, because I was so happy to see him again. I didn't even know that the older one with the old man existed. So I grew up with the prequels. I never saw a problem with the dialogue.
That's the dumbest thing you could have said. What are you, an idiot?
And that's why I wanted to kind of come in and reassess as an adult and as an author now. Is the dialogue clunky? It doesn't. A lot of people's criticisms is that the dialogue in the Star Wars prequels aren't just clunky, but they don't sound like real people talking to each other. And my take on it has always been that the Star Wars prequel era conversations and dialogue kind of like mirrored Shakespeare, almost like a different style or different version of like Shakespearean speak, so to speak. Like a lot of the discussions between Anakin and Padme and their romantic ship scenes, as I call them, kind of sounded like Romeo and Juliet. Like, not exactly, because obviously like Shakespearean talk is very specific, but it was like very unique. And so for me, they live in a galaxy far, far away, and they're not meant to sound like the world that we live in here. And so it's a galaxy far, far away, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. And you have multiple different like alien species, you have multiple different languages like Hutties and other things like that. Like, I've always thought like one of the criticisms of Jar Jar is how stupid he is. And to me, like, growing up, like once I grew up and became an author, I loved the concept of the Gungans just because they had a unique way of speaking, and it was kind of a way of creating a race that's like seen as not that intelligent due to the way that they talk, the way that Yoda talks.
To learn, you still have.
Like, it's not the same way as we would speak in English. And I heard some people even complaining about how Yoda was like, oh, he speaks with the verb and he doesn't know what he's doing. He doesn't have proper grammar. Well, I liked that growing up, because not like even in like real life, like I'm learning Japanese right now, and I took 4 years of Spanish in high school. I took 7 years of German, which I don't remember most of it because German is really complex. Like I remember more about Spanish after 4 years than I do with 7 years of German, just to get that out there. But like, I think in Spanish, the adjective comes after the verb or something, noun, whatever. And like the whole sentence structure is different. In Japanese, it's totally different. So different languages, even in real life, have different ways of putting the words together. So I feel like it's really shallow, very shallow, for people to watch Star Wars and expect the dialogue to sound like modern English, when English isn't even the only language that exists out there. So yeah, you have Yoda, who puts verbs at the end of a sentence. You have the Gungans, who sound very dumb because they're not that intelligent of a life form species in the Star Wars universe. You have the dialogue that people speak, and the way that Anakin and Padme talk to one another is very formal and very old style and very Shakespearean. And so yeah, it doesn't sound like natural dialogue like we would talk to each other. That's not how that's meant to be. And that's not like movies, TV shows, and even books. And this is where I'm tying it back into writing. If you're an author and you're trying to build a world and a race, then yeah, you don't want it to sound like it's modern times, unless you're writing like a modern day story. And I've edited a lot of books for clients, and the majority of them has actually been modern day style books. And so I will edit the dialogue, because that's not how people speak. And like, it's okay in dialogue. Also, like a lot of editors, like even my editor, I'm editing my book Survivor, and one of her comments was like, hey, this is actually incorrect, but if you wanted it to be incorrect grammar, that's fine, because it's the way that the person talks. Like, you don't even have to edit grammatical sentence structure things in dialogue if you don't want to, if it's how the person talks, because that's how people talk. Like, I'm a hick, we say ain't, we say a lot of things and phrases that aren't grammatically correct because that's how we talk. People stutter, people repeat themselves. So dialogue is very unique, because again, it doesn't have to sound like modern day unless you're actually writing a modern day story. But if you're writing sci-fi, if you're writing fantasy, if your story takes place in a whole different world with a whole different race or alien species or anything like that, like, you want it to sound very out there and stuff. You want people to be able to easily read it and understand it. And so, but like, to me, I've always understood Star Wars, even as a kid. So that hasn't really been the problem. And the other thing is that with the Shakespearean style way of speaking, like, again, it's not exactly Shakespeare, but like, I've always seen it as like this otherworldly kind of formal way of speaking to one another. The Anakin and Padme scenes in episode 2 are the ones I'm specifically thinking about. And like, a lot of people criticize the Anakin Padme scene in episode 3, where he's like, you were so beautiful. And she's like, it's only because I'm so in love. And he's like, no, it's because I'm so in love with you. And she's like, so love has blinded you? And he's like, well, that's not exactly what I meant. And she's like, it's probably true. Yes, I have the whole thing memorized. Don't judge me.
I can feel the internet judging me right now.
We listen and we don't judge. You guys know that trend. My point is, if you think about it, it's like, oh, well, people don't actually, like, my husband doesn't flirt with me that way. That's so ridiculous and stupid, and the dialogue's clunky, and like, he thinks that she's beautiful. He's been at war, and he's been in the Outer Rim sieges for years at this point, and he's finally getting to come home and see his wife, who he's not supposed to be married to, and he's watching her brush her hair, and she's talking about how she wants to set up the baby's room, and he's just like, you're so beautiful. And she's like, pregnant, and a lot of pregnant women don't always feel beautiful. Like, I don't know, I haven't been pregnant, but back me up in the comments if you have been. you kind of don't always feel beautiful. Like, women don't feel beautiful all the time anyway, much less if you have a baby. And so she's like, it's only because I'm so in love. Like, you know, it's just like a side comment joke. And he teases her like, no, it's just because I'm so in love with you. Like, he's biased. Like, my husband teases me like that too. And then she's like, so love has blinded you? Like, as in, you only think I'm beautiful because we're married, right? Like, that's how we would say that in the modern times. But like, it's Star Wars. They live in a whole nother galaxy and a planet far, far away. And he's like, that's not exactly what I meant. And he laughs. Like, they're joking and teasing with one another and loving each other. And I get all that from the scene, watching it. Like, if you don't understand that, then I don't know what to tell you. Like,
You're so stupid.
like, if you were to take out Romeo and Juliet right now and read the original version as written by Shakespeare in the 1500s, whenever it was. I haven't exactly like thought about this in years, but if you were to take out Romeo and Juliet as written by Shakespeare when he was alive and you just start reading it, none of that dialogue is going to sound natural.
1,000 times good night.
1,000 times the worst to want thy light.
It's all going to sound weird and wonky. And I would argue, if you were to take out your Bible, the King James version of it, and you start reading the dialogue, I read the New King James version just for reference. And sometimes I'll be reading the stories, like I was reading David, and some of the dialogue between those characters don't make sense. Like, it doesn't sound natural because it was written, you know, thousands of years ago and translated. And even the New King James version was translated in medieval times. So even that doesn't sound natural to us anymore. Like, maybe I'm ranting instead of teaching and I can't breathe. I'm out of shape. What I'm trying to say is, if you were to read Shakespeare, if you were to read the Bible, if you were to read dialogue from anything else that was older or not from this era, it would sound weird. It would not sound like you and me talking. And I would argue, if you were to take something from modern times but from another country, it wouldn't sound natural. Like, try watching anime in Japanese, reading the subtitles. That crap sounds like so weird sometimes. When you're like, and you're reading the captions, you're like, I think that was a weird translation thing because that doesn't make any sense. Or even if you watch anime from Japan, but like it's dubbed in English, so the English people are speaking English, but it's translated from the Japanese. So even that doesn't sound natural. And sometimes the dubs can like be awkward with one another.
In that case, I'll have a go at it.
Cool, honey, sickle, kiss. That doesn't take away your enjoyment of anime. Like, I watch Takawiki both in Japanese and dubbed, and I still love it. I've done that with Fairy Tail as well. So, if you're an author and you're writing a sci-fi, fantasy, building another world, whatever genre, and you want to make it sound unique and different, but you're afraid, and if you're the kind of person to criticize dialogue if it doesn't sound natural, like, I get if it's a modern day story set in the real world. I get that. I edit that for my clients. I've had some weird dialogue that doesn't make any sense. You have to have context of like dialogue. Like, you have to have context of like the genre, the story type, what audience it's meant for, that sort of thing. It's just, don't be afraid to write your book, and don't be afraid to make the characters talk different and sound different and to make the dialogue different. If you're writing a medieval fantasy, for example, having them talk about like totally and LOL and FOMO and like Riz and like all this new stuff, that's gonna be weird. It's a fantasy world, so like if you had a dystopian sci-fi or futuristic world and those terms got more and more common in your world, then that would make sense. So in Star Wars, the prequels happened before the originals. So for all the original people who are fans of the originals criticizing the prequels, hear me out. The prequels happened before the originals. They took place 20 to 30 years before. It was a time when the Jedi were prominent, the Republic was prominent, and so people in those times sounded more formal. Just like how now you have people who sound a lot less formal when they speak than 30 years ago. When was 30 years ago? I'm actually 30, so essentially the 90s. Like the 90s way of speaking sounds really weird nowadays because it's like old. Like you could keep going back, like the way that they talked in the 1940s was vastly different, and I would argue way more formal than how we speak today. I would argue at the time it wasn't formal. It was, probably a lot of slang terms and things like that. Like if you go back to the 1920s, they had a lot of different slang words that probably sounded like slang back then, but now is like a very different way of talking. Like I had to research the 1920s lingo for one of my books, Immortal. I'll have a link in the description below. It's a really good book, especially if you love historical fiction, action, and romance. You all are gonna love it. But anyways, I had to do research on it, and yeah, when I was writing the dialogue, I'm like, this sounds weird. One of the phrases I remember, she's got some nice gams on her. What? What are you talking about? And it's like, that's how they talked. Like, I think it means she's got like a nice pair of legs, like he's complimenting her, that sort of thing. So it's like, it makes sense for the genre, it makes sense for the time, it makes sense for the story and what you're doing with it. And to the Star Wars prequels dialogue, it's not clunky, it's not weird. It's meant to sound like Star Wars, like the way they talk. I actually think some of the newer Star Wars sounds off and doesn't feel like Star Wars because it sounds weird. And it just doesn't fit, and it's too close to modern, and like it's too just, some of this new stuff just feels generic, either like it's too close to actually modern day talking, and it takes me out and sucks me away, like I want to get immersed into a fantasy world, not sucked back into the real world, or it just sounds like a generic sci-fi and not Star Wars. There's a certain like aspect and a magic to Star Wars that makes the movie or the show feel like it's Star Wars. I guess my piece of advice to anybody who branch out a little bit. If you try a new genre, explore, and try to make your characters sound and speak differently. Like if you're the kind of person to write a fantasy or a sci-fi and everybody sounds the same, try doing something new. Try having a society where they have the verb in a different spot. Maybe they start off with the verb run. Today, I don't know, that sounded weird, but you know what I'm saying. Try where they add a society and a race where they actually value compliments and you're respecting the other person, so they have no less than 2 or 3 compliments behind a noun or in front of a noun. Just make up your own grammar rules and make up your own type of dialogue and way of speaking for the races in the world. That makes it feel unique. It makes it feel real, like it is another galaxy, another realm, another area, another land, if you will. So give it a try, and in the meantime, the Star Wars dialogue and the prequels, it's not weird, it's not clunky, it's creative, it's unique, it builds a galaxy far, far away, and if you don't like that, then you're not a fan, and go find something else that does sound like today. Anyways, if you liked this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more writing and reading videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And in the meantime, if you liked my video and rant about this dialogue, then check out one of the first videos I ever did breaking down dialogue. It's more of the technical rules behind dialogue writing, and it could really help you out, especially if you're interested in this topic. Check it out, you don't want to miss it.